Namaste. My salutations to all of you. Welcome back to Gita ODC live sessions. I know that a lot of people are traveling and cannot attend the next 2-3 sessions. We are moving ahead and the recordings will be available to all of you. So we propose to complete this first course on Bhagavad Gita, which is the first step into Bhagavad Gita, with 2 more sessions. Next week, we will cover all the shlokas up to 44, 47. And then we will do a recap of the entire first chapter. And in fact, the entire topic. We will do that the week after next week. And then we will take a short break. And then we can resume in September with chapter 2. So without any delay, we can get started. So we covered up to shloka 37 last week. As you all know, we are in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is the problem statement. The problem, the fundamental human problem statement, using a particular situation, a particular prototype, Arjuna. So the context may be different and the type of problem may be different from person to person and people to people, and from time to time. But the fundamental problem addressed by Bhagavad Gita is that I am subjected to sorrow, that I am subjected to suffering. And that is common to all the human beings, right from Stone Age to 2024. So that is the fundamental problem. Krishna is not addressing Arjuna's problem, specifically what he should be doing in the Kurukshetra battlefield. That is why a problem, a solution given to one person at a point of time in the history became a universal solution in the entire universe. That is the beauty of the Bhagavad Gita. So last week, what we saw was Arjuna, who was introduced to the battlefield. And he came to battlefield with a determination that he had to engage in this battle. He has to fight this battle. And that was his determination. He was completely clear about his goals and objective. Meaning, mind you, he's a soldier. And the duty of a soldier in a battlefield is to engage the battle. It's not like you and me, because we are not soldiers. So our job is what? Our duty is what? We need to do what need to be done as part of our duty. So Arjuna get into this battlefield, but when he saw the people whom he needs to fight with, he got completely shattered. And in that shattered mind, because he was fully, because of the attachment, raga and dvesha, binding likes and dislikes. He had binding likes and dislikes to people, situation, and objects. Because of that created shoka, emotional imbalance or emotional issues, and which leads to moha. Moha means delusion. This is the sequence of problem statement in the Bhagavad Gita. Binding, attachment, and aversion can create shoka, emotional overwhelming, and from that emotional imbalance, you act without your intelligence. You act contrary to your nature. So Arjuna, when he saw Bhishma, Drona, and all the dear and near in front of the battlefield, he has to fight with them. He got completely emotionally overwhelmed. And in that state, he started speaking with deluded mind. And mind you, he tried to give the rationalizations why he don't want to do his duty as a soldier. Why it is better to retreat from that battlefield. Why it is better for allowing others to overtake him or conquer him. So he finds some rationalizations. That is what we saw in the previous class. And if you take this rationalization out of context and try to see that rationalization makes sense. But when you put that together holistically, that is where the problem. And later in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells, see, it is okay for you to fight the battle or retreat from the battle. That is fine. But what is the mindset in you that is making that decision? Whatever decision you take from a weak mind, whatever you taken from an emotionally charged mind, that decision is not good. That decision, meaning most of the times that decision may not be correct. So the decision has to be taken from a clear mind, a calm mind, a mind that is completely in our control. This is the fundamental requirement Krishna is trying to advise us. So let's continue to see that rationalizations from 38 to 44. We may not be able to cover up to the entire shlokas today, but definitely we will cover as much as possible. Next week we'll pick it up. But if you take these shlokas independently, these rationalizations sound beautiful, and we might be able to sympathize with Arjuna. Yes, what he's saying is right. But please think at that point of time, what mindset of Arjuna put forth these arguments? Is that a strong mind or a weak mind or a confused mind? Anything coming out of that weak mind is not good. Shakespeare used to repeatedly use this particular quote in his dramas. Anything coming out of a weak mind has to be rejected. Exactly the same point. Let's listen the chanting.
यद्यप्येतेन पश्यन्ति लोभोपहत चेतसः कुलक्षयकृतं दोषं मित्रद्रोहे च पातकम् कथं न ज्ञेयमस्माभिः पापादस्मान्निवलक्षयकृतं दोषम् प्रपश्यद्भिर्जनार्दन.
As requested, let's try to break the word by word and try to see the meaning, because there was a request to break the Sanskrit words and explain. So Arjuna tells, Yadi api. Yadi api means even if. That is the meaning. Even if ete means these people in front of him. So Arjuna says, even if the people in front of me, what type of people? Whose mind is destroyed or whose mind is captured by the greed. So Arjuna is referring to the people in front of him, who is the Kauravas. So these Kauravas or these opposition or the people in front of me, their mind is hijacked by the greed. And because of that, what is going to happen? They do not see dosham, the defect. In what? What type of dosham? Mitra drohena kulakshaya kritam. So kulakshaya kritam means destruction of the society, destruction of the family. Mitra droha means the damage or the betrayal of the damage done on the fronts. And patakam means wrong action. So because of the greed and because of their selfishness, their mind is hijacked. And because of that, they are not seeing anything wrong in destroying the family and destroying the friendship. And in the next shloka, he continues that argument. And he tells, O Janardana. Janardana means, O Krishna, Katham Nashreyam. Katham means how. Nashreyam means can't it be known to me? Asmakam, can't it be known to us? What is the quality of us? Pashyanti, because we are seeing something which they are not seeing. What exactly we are seeing? Dosham. We are seeing the dosham, meaning the defect of what? Kulakshaya kritam. Kulakshaya kritam means we are seeing the defect of destructing the family. Nivartitum. So therefore, let us stay back. Let us retreat. Asma papa. So meaning, so therefore, let us retreat from this sinful act. So this is the word by word explanation of these shlokas. So even though these Kauravas, with the mind hijacked by greed, meaning they don't see anything wrong in destroying the family and the friendship, Pandavas who can see clearly the sin of destroying the family, we should turn away from this evil act. How can we, Janardana, O Krishna, knowingly commit this sin of destruction as we see things clearly. This is what Arjuna's argument. Again, as I said, if you take this argument independently, it looks very genuine, it looks very meaningful. But if you take it in the larger context, it's a problem. So he tried to argue that the family will be destroyed. And again, this is from Raga and Shoka. He get into that delusionary mood. And his rationalization, this rationalization, even though these arguments seems to be good, but it is coming from an unhealthy mental state. And mind you, the Krishna is completely silent again. He is just waiting for the right moment, or he is just allowing Arjuna to speak through the problem. So this is the eternal conflict between the duty and the desire. What needs to be done and what feeling to be done. Let's get into the subjective aspect of these shlokas, because this is not just Arjuna's. This is a constant, as we saw, there is a constant battle that is happening within ourselves. One is the destructive emotions and the adharmic thoughts. On the other side, it is the positive emotions as well as the dharmic thoughts. So under the influence of ego and our habits, what is going to happen? Seeing the ego and our own habits, the self-control represented by Arjuna, it put forth arguments, what? Not to control those habits and thoughts, even though they are not healthy to me, even though they are not conducive to me. These arguments may apparently good and valuable. But again, as we saw in the other argument, it is coming out of a weak mind. And any decision coming out of the weak mind is unreliable. Here the self-control try to justify the behavior of destructive emotions and negative thoughts or the bad habits. The self-control's argument is these negative emotions, destructive emotions, and adharmic thoughts, they are trying to hijack our mind because they are passionate about the attachment of the desires of the body and the sense pleasures. As a result, it is natural for them to get hijacked and carried away for that unhealthy food or that procrastination or cutting corners or doing that sense pleasure. It is okay because they don't see the destruction, what is going to happen. But if we try to destroy them, what is going to happen? These thoughts are also part and parcel of our personality. And if I destroy these thoughts, I'm going to affect my own personality. What is the value of my life without that junk food? What is the value of my life without indulging in that sense pleasure? So knowing this, because if I try to destroy that, they are dear to my body, they are dear to my mind. If that is destroyed, I am going to destroy my own personality. Because of that, why don't I excuse? The positive thoughts, even though they don't see the destruction of the family, we need to see my personality is made up of not just these healthy habits. One or two unhealthy habits is okay. We should keep away from this psychological battle because it is going to destroy many members of my own personality. And these thoughts and these emotions are dear to me. So it seems to be unreasonable to destroy this family clan of the sense inclination, since they have the specific function to perform in my life. So here the Gita cautions us the influence of this destructive emotions and thoughts in our psyche. Because over a period of time, I started developing sympathy towards them. And I think that I try to rationalize them. It's once in a week I can have this junk food. Once in a while I can cut corners and do that smoking. Once in a while, I can compromise a little bit of morality in me. Once in a while, I can cut corners and cheat that, take shortcut to gain a little bit of more money. So these type of thoughts will come and we ourselves will try to rationalize it. The same idea is given in the Dhammapada. In the Dhammapada, actually there is a famous verse. As fish from a watery home is drawn and kept cast upon the land, even though the frontiers of this mind, while the Mara's realm is abandoning. So when trying to get away from the thoughts of Mara in Buddhism means it is the evil thoughts. the mind begins to cure like a fish taken out of water, because it wants to indulge in that negative thoughts. It wanted to, Mara is evil or devil, right? So that type, the thoughts planted by the Mara, when I'm trying to control it, work, Lord Buddha tells, the mind will work like a fish out of water. Beautiful example. So let's listen to Avanti's thought on these two verses, and then we can continue.
Let's make this a bit brighter. So verse 38 and verse 39, we took both of them together. So basically what you need to put a focus on over here, first I'll go with what Rajeshji said. Very true about every decision coming from a sound mind. And also very true that when we are about to make a decision, the mind appears to be very sound. And it's often that when we are most ignorant, our mind becomes most adamant. So you need to try and lift this up in your own interactions and see where this is happening, because it'll really, really help you to step back when your mind is about to make a wrong decision. Over here, when you see Arjuna arguing with the statements that he's arguing, it's clearly depicting a very rajasic intellect, which Krishna goes on to explain later on towards the end of the Bhagavad Gita. And what are the two qualities that you need to know about a rajasic intellect is that it mixes up what is adharma and dharma. It's not able to segregate. It thinks adharma to be dharma and dharma to be adharma in that whole mode of passion, in that whole mode of rajas. And also second thing is that it gets completely confused on what is to be done and what is not to be done. And that is exactly what Arjuna is playing over here, that utmost confusion of a human mind that is grappled by emotions. So over here, the kind of questions, first of all, what he does again, he's used that word as, which means me, he's telling Krishna, both of us, we are seeing what is right, and yet we are committing sin. So always when we are having tough decisions to make and we are confused, you see, we try and get others into our delusions. We try and convince them that we are right, and we try and almost hypnotize them to agree with what we are saying. And obviously, this is not going to work with Krishna. He's just silently standing there because he wants Arjuna to vent out. But this is our very pertinent habit of always trying to get everybody on board with our wrong thinking. So that's another thing that you can identify with our human regular struggles. Another thing that is lighted over here is that what Arjuna is saying over here is coming from this genuine human need of doing the right thing. But again, today, I think most of us are parents, grandparents over here. So one of the things that we must remember that more often than not, we have to choose to be cruel, to be kind. A lot of time, destruction is needed for construction. And Arjuna is facing this on the battlefield. But within our own lives, especially as parents or mentors or whatever, many a times these days, especially because kids are getting so adamant then with their viewpoints in life, generally how they look at life, that we try to, in this process of trying to befriend them and trying not to become their enemies, we give in to a lot of things that they say, which we know are not wrong. So we have to use our discerning intellect over here and understand that what is wrong needs to be pushed down for the right to be conducted by them later, which we can very well relate to Arjuna, because what Arjuna is saying is the truth, that it's very, very unkind to kill all these people. But why does he need to kill these people? So that righteousness can be attained later. Same way, there's this very famous English quote that goes, spare the rod and spoil the child. So our job as Father's Day here in Singapore, it'll be for you as well, right? We are finishing ours and for you. So happy Father's Day to everybody. But many a times we do have to lift the rod to save the child. And now our jobs are becoming tougher and tougher because kids are becoming braver and bolder and even more intelligent than we ever were. And it's not that they're always wrong, but with our wisdom and our expertise, we need to understand exactly what Arjuna is not understanding here, that sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. You have to destroy to reconstruct what is right. So I think those are the main, and one important thing, when we make a decision, when we are making a decision, when we are torn between two things, exactly how Arjuna is, and Arjuna is rationalizing over here, we too tend to rationalize. Oh, no, Rajesh, you were saying it's okay. Once in a week, I'm having junk food, or I'll wake up tomorrow. Why today? Last night, I've had a bad sleep. So let me just snooze. I'll wake up again. From tomorrow, I'll start exercising. At that moment, all the rationalization seems very, very sound. If we don't correct that at that point, how we feel later will validate for you whether your decision was right or wrong. And Krishna, later on, he draws Arjuna's attention to this very, very strongly. He says that even if you defy your nature and you do otherwise, you will not be able to rest in peace because your own nature will make you restless inside. So this whole conflict that we discussed in the last class is that when we know what to do, what is right, we still do the wrong thing. That, remember that discussion that we had? The best way, sometimes we just go ahead and do what we do. But the best way for not to do it the next time is to see how we have felt the last time we did it. Because if we have done the wrong thing, we will be extremely restless. And when we are restless, we'll realize that all those rationalizations that we use to convince ourselves that we're doing the right thing was wrong. So Arjuna is going down this track of giving the right rationalizations in the wrong context. But Krishna is silent now, and he will slowly slay all of these assumptions of Arjuna one by one, starting from chapter 2, right up to chapter 18. So let's see what the next verse says. Verse 40.
Thank you, Avanti. So there is a quote: unhealthy thoughts and emotions often receive a warm defense in the courtroom of the mind, making them appear less like intruders and more like a family. This is so true. So please reflect on this. So let's continue. Let's see the next set of shlokas. We are going to see 40 to 44 together. So let's listen to the chanting first.
कुलक्षये प्रणश्यन्ति कुलधर्माः सनातनाः धर्मे नष्टे कुलं कृत्स्नम् अधर्मोऽभिभवत्युत अधर्माभिभवात् कृष्ण प्रदुष्यन्ति कुलस्त्रियः स्त्रीषु दुष्टासु वार्ष्णेयते वर्णसङ्करः सङ्करो नरकायैव कुलघ्नानां कुलस्य च पतन्ति पितरो ह्येषां लुप्तपिण्डोदकक्रियाः दोषैरेतैः कुधर्माः कुलधर्माश्च उत्सन्नकुलधर्माणां मनुष्याणां जनार्दन नरके नियतं वासः भवति नुशुश्रुम.
Beautiful set of verses, sometimes get misinterpreted. So let's see the literal meaning, and then we will see from Arjuna's angle. And if time permits today, we will try to see the subjective meaning of these shlokas. So as requested, let's go the word by word breaking of the meaning. So the first point Arjuna is saying, Kulakshaye Sanatana Kuladharmam Pranashyati. That is the first statement. So if I rearrange the word of Shloka 40, so he tells, when the family is destroyed or when the community is destroyed, then what happens? Then what happens? When the society or the family gets destroyed, what happens? The dharma of the community or the identity of the community gets destroyed, which is very true. And then what is going to happen? The next point he says, dharme nashte adharma krishnam kulam abhibhavati utaha. That is the meaning. So he tells dharma, when the dharma get destroyed, what is going to happen? Prevail, ati bhavati. So when the dharma gets destroyed, the adharma will prevail. Krishnam kulam, in the entire community, the adharma will prevail. So that is the meaning of the Shloka 38. When the family, meaning the combined meaning is, when the family is destroyed, what is going to happen is the dharmas of the family or the dharmas of the community will be destroyed. And when the dharma is destroyed, adharma will rule in the community or the family. So this is the problem of a typical civil war Arjuna is highlighting. And in Shloka 41, he continues that rationalization. Mind you, these are all valid points from an independent perspective. He tells, "O Krishna, what is going to happen? So, adharmapi bhavat, due to the increase in adharma, what is going to happen? Yaha pradushyanti, what happens? The women of the family, what is going to happen? They also goes to the improper ways. And then what is going to happen? Varshneya strishu dushtasu varna sankaraha jayante." So when, oh Krishna, Varshneya here means the one who is in the clan of Vishnu. That is what Arjuna addressed Krishna. Strishu dushtasu, when women get corrupted, that the grip of the family, the varna sankaraha, confusion in the society is going to happen. Jayate varna sankaraha. It's nothing related to the caste. We are going to talk about that a little bit later. When the women of the family loses that dharmic values, what is going to happen? The whole integrity of the society get destroyed, and confusion in the society is going to happen. That is the meaning of that. This is what happens in a civil war. Again, this is Shloka 41. So 42, he continues this argument. He says, when the integrity of the society goes happen, he tells, Sankara evam kalpate. He tells, Sankaraha means this confusion in the society. Evaha means indeed. Kalpate means will result in what? Narakaya. It's a state of hellish society in the community. Kulasya. So this confusion, or when the increase in adharma, will create a hellish society in the community. Cha, he says, and what happened? Kulaknana, that will destroy the community and that will destroy the family. The society loses its meaning it's confused society. And when the confusion in the society prevails, the integrity of the society get destroyed. And then he tells, Pitaraha yetam. So the ancestors of our community, of what is going to happen, lukta pindo udaka kriyaha. So what is going to happen? They will be denied their rituals, or they actually patantihi pitaro. Say they fall down because the values established in the society by these ancestors will not be fall, and as a result, what is going to happen? They also fall down, because symbolically it is said that the rituals, the pinda rituals for them will not be offered. It means that the society deviates completely from that value system and the ethics created by our forefathers. So we will deviate from the vision of our forefathers. So that is the shloka. So let's see the next shloka, 43. And he continues this argument. The next point he tells is, Ete, by these wrong action, ete doshe, by these wrong actions of who, because as a result, the family values, the community values gets destroyed. Kulakhnana, the family and the community values gets destroyed. Varna sankarakarahe, creates confusion in the society. And what is going to happen? The perennial, shashwata, dharma, the dharma that was prevailing in the society get destroyed. And kula dharma, jadi dharma, the community's duty and the community's value get destroyed. Utsende, that get destroyed. And Shloka 44 concludes that argument. Again, it looks very rational, but you have to see the context. And he concludes the point that, O Janardana, we have heard or studied that iti vasaha, this life, narake niyatam vasaha, Such a life lead the society to a hellish state. Manushyanam utsandya kuladharmana. Such people will live a hellish life. So basically, what he is trying to say here is that these actions, if I try to kill all my family members and all the members of the community, it's a civil war. What is going to happen? There won't be not enough people in the society. And as a result, what is going to happen? Actually, there won't be appropriate skilled or qualified people to do their job. And as a result, total confusion will come. People will try to do something which is they are not skillful or knowledgeable. And as a result, what is going to happen? The whole community will be destroyed and there will be a hellish life awaiting for us. So this is the summary of these shlokas. Again, we said this is shoka. The world, he is trying to interpret this from moha. And the concern is valid, right? So when you try in a civil war, what is going to happen? The entire community will be destroyed and the family bonds will be destroyed and a chaos in the society is going to happen from the war. And he refers to the erosion of the societal structure leading to Varna Sankara. It means only social disorder. This is nothing related with the caste. We will say that mismatched role, right? So let's think, it is often misinterpreted as Varna is often misinterpreted as caste, which is wrong, which we are going to talk a little bit later. But here telling that, let's say that if all the qualified doctors got destroyed, what is going to happen? The people who are not qualified to treat people will try to take up that job. And what is going to create that? It is going to create confusion there. That's all it means. There is nothing talking about by birth he is eligible to do that. Absolutely not. Here says that the people will get destroyed. And as a result, people who are not trained or skilled to do that job, they will take up that job. And as a result, it will be destroyed. Let's say that if somebody is absolutely not interested in teaching, and if you put that person in the teaching mode, it is going to be a disaster. The children will suffer. And that is true for everything else. So Arjuna's fears are actually, it is dramatized, meaning Vyasa dramatized that through an imagery, right? The ancestors rejecting your rituals. Why? Because the value established by that ancestors got completely deviated. So this is how we need to understand this sloka. It's nothing related to jati or varna or anything like that. These are all misinterpretation. So this is the Arjuna's fear. But one thing is he is trying to uphold the dharma. His concerns goes the moral duties. Actually, I was reading a few books and actually there is some good articles by some of the world leaders around the World War II is very important. In that World War II, they are afraid like if we go ahead and do this battle, it is going to kill innocent people. It is going to have a lot of destruction and a lot of people are going to die. But finally, remember the conclusions, why the Allies decide to go and fight this war. The damage you make by not doing this war is more than the damage caused by the war. If you allow this Nazi ideology to conquer the world, what would be that? How disastrous it would be. So this is what is known as Dharma Yuddha. When you engage in a war, the doing the war is much less damaging than not the war is more damaging than doing the war. So that time, for example, like sometimes you need to go through a surgery in your own body, right? And who would like to have to cut your heart and open your heart and doing that surgery? It's very painful. And sometimes it can create problem also. It can even destroy us. But why the doctor is advising us to do that surgery? Not doing that surgery is more riskier than doing that surgery. And this is what exactly the definition of Dharma Yuddha. And Krishna was addressed by Varshneya. It talks about his heritage, his lineage. And obviously, the lineage is one thing if the person is not fitting up to that lineage. For example, all of us are human beings. We come from that, there is a humanity that we have to show. Just like that, Krishna came from a dharmic family. Everybody was following dharma and they used to give up things for the sake of dharma. So Arjuna was addressing Krishna like, if you are known as Varshnaya because of that great culture inherited from to time. So if I destroy the society, what is going to happen? I'm going to destroy that noble culture of the country. Is that valuable? So that's how Arjuna was addressing. So one more here is we need to clarify what is Varna, because typically people say that Varna, they associate that with caste, which is wrong, absolutely wrong, right? So people say that Brahmana, Vaishya, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Unfortunately, these terminologies have abused and misused by people. So the Varna and the caste are totally different. People always associate caste by birth, but Varna is not by birth. It is what Krishna tells in the 4th chapter. Varna is based on the mental temperament, and Varna is also based upon the work I take, right? So we will have a long discussion about this later in the 4th chapter, and this will continue in the 9th chapter. So these are the two places this is being called out. Often misinterpreted, and without understanding the Gita, people try to criticize this point. So Varna typically means it's the color of the mind. That is not the color of the body, right? If the color of the body is the def of Varna, Vyasa would be a saint. Narayana Guru would not be a saint. Kannappa would not be a saint. Also, Nayanars would not be a saint. So all these are not based upon the color of the body. It is the color of the mind. So the color of the mind means it is temperament. If your mind is predominantly Swatik, you can call them as spiritual people. I'm avoiding the word Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra because that can create confusion. And then if your mind is active and that is Rajasic person, that means you're active, but you're selfish. That is the second category. Conventionally, it is called as Kshatriya. And the third category, you're active, but you're selfishly active. That is called the third category. That is the Vaishya category conventionally. And the fourth category is you're not at all active. Tamas is predominant and a little bit of Rajas is there and almost zero Sattva. So there needs to be told what needs to be done at any point of time. And conventionally, that is called Shudra. So the caste system, which is shown in the picture, this is not right. And that is exactly what not we are showing here. It is Varna. So this misinterpretation of Varna as caste, it contradicts to the core teachings of Sanatana Dharma because it promotes unity and it promotes equality. You will see later in the Gita, in the 5th chapter, Krishna tells who is a Pandita. Pandita means one who has the knowledge of the truth. Atma Vishe Buddhihi Pandidaha. He tells he will say a saint and a dog eater with the same eyes. We cannot differentiate it because it is the manifestation of that one truth. So how can you say that one is higher and the other is wrong? This is very, very important to understand. And Shankaracharya has written this, what is that? The famous Shlokas called Manisha Panchakam. There he completely rejects this idea of this caste system. Caste system is wrong. It's an intrusion into our culture. And this misinterpretation of Varna as caste, it contradicts to the teachings of the Sanatana Dharma. Actually, there is a beautiful book. It is written in Malayalam called Vedadikara Nirupanam. Who is eligible to study Veda by Chattambi Swami, one of the famous saint who happened to be one of the teacher of Swami Chinmayananda and even who happened to meet with Swami Vivekananda and who taught like of the Omkara. And Chattambi Swamiji was a contemporary of the great saint Narayana Guru. Both of them tried to eradicate this evil of caste system from the society. And he wrote this book called Vedadikara Nirupanam. It clearly tells, using the pramanas of the Vedas and the Vedanta, that there is no value in the caste system. So let's take that idea of the caste from the mind. Nobody is superior by birth. If you want, it has to be through your actions and your own mental thinking. And actions aligned to your mental temperament. That is what the Varna system is, which is completely science. But the caste system is completely wrong and inhuman. So this correction is very much important. So this challenges of the caste system. It shadows judgment based upon the action of a few people. Yes, I'm not saying that even though the caste system is never voiced by our culture, some people in the past misused and abused this caste system, and a large section of the society was completely kept out of this teaching, and they did a lot of wrongdoing in the name of religion to such people. This is wrong, and this has to be eliminated. Swami used to talk a lot about this. And when he came to South India, especially he came to Kerala, the prayer was horrible. And seeing this, Swami Vivekananda got very sad. And he said, this is a lunatic asylum. That is the language he used. This is wrong. So this misuse of the Varna system, or misinterpretation of the Varna system as this of the Gita, we should completely take this away from our mind. And let's even use these words right now, because even if you try to defend the word Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, it is already created a very negative impression in people's mind. Probably we may need to use some new terminologies to indicate what exactly the scripture is going to talk about. This is a little bit of side track. Let's try to quickly see the subjective of this. So here, Arjuna is saying, forceful control of the mind, it may destroy the natural state of the mind. So if I just, I am, but I cannot eat. I am tired, but I cannot sleep. These are the kind of explanations. So if I try to control, it is going to create, Arjuna is arguing that it is going to create the natural state of the mind. And this may create some disharmony in the mind and may impact our perception, feeling, thoughts, emotions, and our normal behavior if I try to control my thoughts and emotions. So this forceful control of the mind, when I try to control the mind forcefully, because the subjective psychological war, it is going to destroy both the positive and the negative thoughts of the mind. And as a result, what is going to happen? A new state will be developed with a modified set of thoughts, emotions, and tendencies. These modified state, it may not be deviating from my personality, right? Let's say that a person who is always drinking and indulging sensually, if he changes completely, it will be a complete changeover of his personality, and that may not be good for him. That is what the Arjuna is saying. And what is going to happen? So we hear symbolically what it is saying is that we perceive the world through various sense organs, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, etc. And then what is going to happen? There will be a thought associated with that sense organs. So what is going to happen? I am going to control. For example, when I see with the eyes, what I see, only certain sensual aspect. Because why? That is what the thought behind the sense organ is programmed or redirected. So if I destroy that thought, the natural mental thought and emotions associated with the sense perception, it is going to destroy my personality. So symbolically, it is said that the sense organs are married to the thoughts associated. So the thoughts associated with the sense objects. So this is what happens. So the thoughts are destroyed. The sense organs will naturally get corrupted. It will get associated with other thoughts, and it may disrupt my personality. So the association of sense organs and thoughts, a simple example. You might be engaged in playing God, and somebody might be shouting in front of you. Even your eyes see him, even in your ears hear them, but you may not listen to that. So without a supporting thought, the sense perceptions cannot perform well in the mind. This is pure psychology and the science. And what will happen as a result of the psychological war? What is going to happen? The thoughts of the sense organs get destroyed, the normal thoughts. And what is going to happen? This will make the sense without partners. And slowly, different sense organ, what it will try to associate with some thoughts or the tendencies of the mind. So what is going to happen? Earlier, whenever I see the junk food, I just jump in. That is the thought. And when I associate with a new thought, okay, I may go to a different thing or I may move away from that. So that is going to change my personality completely. That is what it is. The sense organs, when they associated with these unnatural thoughts, it will affect the well-being of my mind, result in a bad situation or a emotional pressure. So this new mental state, because earlier I used to get excited when I see that sense organs or when I see that drink or when I try to cut corners. And now what is going to happen? My life will become empty and I will be deviating from my own personality. And if I deviate from my personality, what is the value of my life? This chaotic state of the mind is a deviation of the mind from its natural state. And this will result in an unhealthy mental condition. So self-control decides that it is better not to control. See, the points are genuine, and there is some risk in controlling our natural emotions blindly because it can affect. Suppose you were completely a sense engaging person. One day, if you try to control it blindly, try to suppress it, it can affect the body and the mind negatively. We should never try to control the emotion blindly. Rather, we should manage through yoga because that is what the chapter 2 and chapter 17, like chapters gives a beautiful set of topics. You can cultivate some good habits. Instead of blindly killing the bad habit, you can substitute that with good habits. So we'll talk about that later as we try. So you need to talk to yourself and some close friends about how do you feel. Talking things begin to make it clearer and find out solutions. So this is going to be the whole subject matter of the Gita in the upcoming set of shlokas. So let me pause here. But key takeaway here is, please try to understand that the Varna system is not the caste system. And caste system, we all should, as true followers of the Sanatana Dharma, we all should completely reject it. Please don't bring the idea of caste. Nobody is superior by birth. It has to be, or a family you are born, because you've born in a particular family, that doesn't make you great. You need to work hard. It is our own work, our own subha that is going to make some impacts in the society. So with that, let me give to Avanti and we will continue the discussion.
So since we were talking about emotions and all sorts of emotions being in our head and mind and how each of them has to be acknowledged and used properly. We've spoken about this in an earlier class where the translation of the word emotions is movers. They move us to action. If you see, the best and worst actions have been only because they've been backed by great emotions. So in that context, there's this amazing movie. I don't know who's in this audience because there are no videos on. So it's hard to say whether you're like young people or older people. But there's a phenomenal movie that's come now, Inside Out 2. You must take your children, grandchildren to watch it. And if you haven't watched Inside Out 1, then you should watch that at home on Netflix, Amazon, whatever's available, and then watch this Inside Out 2 because it animate for you exactly what Rajesh has been talking about when he was explaining these verses, is the admixture of various emotions and how suppressing, repressing, not giving a voice to any one emotion completely distorts the personality. And it is not something that is a figment of personality sabotage by suppression and repression is a very real fact. So I would highly recommend you all to go and watch this movie. It's great for adults too. We use it even in our adult workshops. We've used Inside Out 1. But I'm sure a psychologist has worked very keenly with this director to do these two movies because it's a perfect dramatization of everything that he's just spoken about. So that's one good thing to and watch so that all of these teachings are fresh in your mind. Now, just going verse by verse, and why I want to take it verse by verse is that A, chapter was always overlooked, and B, chapter 1 is used by a lot of people to shun the Bhagavad Gita altogether by saying that, warmongering book and Krishna is a bad man who tells people to get up and fight. So for that thing, we have to listen to what Arjuna's arguments and what actually reality is, the reality that he completely misses while he is arguing. So when we look at verse 40, he's talking about the destruction of the community. Okay. And he says the rites and rituals and all of that will be destroyed if we kill these families. There itself, we see the utter confusion in his head. Because at this point when the war was about to fall, whatever he's concerned about over here, rituals, families will perish, we will lose spirituality, impiety, whatever he's spoken about here, the society had already lost all of it. They had already plummeted to that worst case scenario that any society could be in. And to resurrect that's from this absolute bottom that they had, the rock bottom that they had reached, this war was being fought. So what trying to say over here is that the families that we are going to destroy is going to destroy all the piety and the righteousness in our society, not understanding in that moment of confusion that the families that he will destroy, which is essentially the Kauravas, will give them the only chance to reestablish the righteousness. So when you look at it like just independently without the context, and many people do that, and that is why the Bhagavad Gita is shunned by so many as saying that no, as talking about war and go to war, when Arjuna is presenting such fabulous rationalizations, you have to understand the context. That what he's saying may be correct, but the families that he's talking about are the very families that have destroyed everything that he wants to save by not killing them. So that was verse number 40. Now, when we look at verse number 41, see, his arguments have only started on complete ignorance. The base is only ignorance. So when your base is ignorance, whatever you build upon it is going to be ignorance. So you have to go with that kind of a flow that he started wrong. Everything else that he's going to say is going to be wrong. Now, when he comes to 41, very sensitive topic he brings over here, and he talks about the women. Okay. Now, in context of what he's saying, the literal translation of what's going on in his mind is that all the people fighting in the war are men. Now, men are all killed. The women are going to be without their protectors. And in that, they will seek companionship or protection from other men. Those men may not necessarily be according to their caste, which we've just shunned completely with Rajeshji's explanations. So then there'll be a lot of confusion in society. Okay. He's talking about women being corrupted. Now, again, you can see how his confusion is so deep because corruption of women was one of the reasons that this war was even initiated. His own wife, Draupadi, was derobed, whole full palace. And that is one of the biggest reasons, not because it was his wife, but the ultimate protection of a woman within the four walls of the palace was completely shunned. And that is one of the biggest reasons. So when he's saying women will be corrupted because of this war, yes, women will be left without their men and all that, but he has missed the whole context again over here. So that ignorance keeps building up. And like we said in the previous verse, that to defend our wrong thinking, we will try and get more and more wrong thinking into, try and pad it up and make everybody else agree. Okay, so that was verse 41. And he talks about the caste. Rajeshji has done a brilliant job explaining that. But you know what I would like to just highlight over here, and we'll talk about this later on in chapter 4 and chapter 9 and all of that. Just to think about it, when we've spoken about the color of the mind or what we call as mental temperaments, sattva, rajas, tamas. Okay, if you call them colors, white, red, black. The colors themselves animate what these qualities are and what they will help us accomplish in this world. And all of us are an admixture of all these three qualities, just in different permutations and combinations, and all of them are very much needed. Our predominant quality will put us in respective castes, which in today's day and age, we can't say that it's not true and none of that is true, because in today's day and age, what are career counselors using day and night? They're using your mental, when you're doing the tick marks. That day I actually took one of those career counseling questionnaires. I was just seeing what it is. And I was trying to think about this whole caste system. And as I was ticking, it was quite evident to me what my predominant, quality is, temperament of mind is, and what professions that are linked with that quality of who I am were absolutely exact. So that mental temperament at that time, what was called caste or varna, which we leave alone for now, is very much in our society today, used left, right, and center in career, college counseling, career counseling, marriage compatibility. I mean, if you look at the new marriage compatibility, the marriage, what do you call it? What are they called? The marriage sites or whatever, where they link human beings together. The same questions you're answering, the same temperaments they're trying to find, likes, dislikes, this, that, everything, and they're trying to match. So even in marriage compatibilities, it's being used. And the classic example of arranged marriage, even when they forced, in the older generation, mine certainly did, forced us to think about marrying in our class, I won't say caste, had very right thinking to it, because it's very hard to adjust outside of what you are used to. And when we really look at it, because I've done sociology of family in the US, I studied it. And it was shocking to see that, wasn't much compatibility. Those marriages fell apart. Where there wasn't much compatibility, that person did not achieve much success in that job that they had taken up, or the kind of careers that they had pursued. So all of this very much makes sense. And when we get to chapter 4, we will see how it makes sense. And then we will see that this is exactly what it was being said back in the day. And it had nothing to do with being born in the particular family. If you look at your own children, one of my children is into, and human rights activism and all of that. And the other one is building robots. So how are they of the same kind? Not at all. They require completely different skill sets. So just keep this in mind and don't shun it completely. But yes, this whole thing of being born a Brahmana and so I'm superior and you are born a Shudra and you are that we must remove from the mind. When we look at verse 42, first of all, when he talks about hell, now I'm trying to read some of the more advanced Vedantic texts and of all these other realms that exist, and this look that there's too much. But the point still remains that nobody has come back from the dead to tell us, oh, where you're going to go, or this is where you will not go according to what you've done. Nobody has come back to tell us what it is. So, in the context of what we are studying, in the context of the applicability of this knowledge into our daily lives, we have to just take it that heaven and hell are not geographical places that we will go to after death, because we don't know that yet. And we have to make the Bhagavad Gita practical. They are just states of our mind. So when our mind is agitated, when it is perturbed, when it is all over the place, we are in hell. When our mind is in a lot of peace, calm, tranquility, we are in heaven. And this is not only as we are alive, even when somebody dies. And recently I've attended so many funerals and have been listening to so many prayers that are being said when those funerals are happening, is let the soul rest in peace, let it go in peace. Even when we hear of a terminal illness, what do the doctors tell us? That keep this patient as happy as they can be. Keep them in a good state of mind. What is palliative care? The number one thing of palliative care is happiness of mind. So that is what is hell and heaven when you're alive and when you pass on as well. I think even Sadhguru talks very strongly about this, is that the state of the mind when you're leaving body is so important. It is so important. You can't go as in a turbulent state of mind. So when he talks about this hell and this, it is just an agitated mind or an unagitated mind. And then a very important thing that he talks about, the ancestors being deprived of the this particular ceremony that they are deprived of, all offerings and their rites and rituals and all that stuff. That also he's missed the point over here, because really if you go into now also, if you're still following, I don't know how many of you all still follow in our family, we still follow that yearly Varsha Shraddha, we call it in Marathi, where every year we offer, and some rites and rituals to our ancestors. It is, the point of it is that we have to remember the matriarch or patriarch for what principles and values they stood upon to hold the family together, and what kept the family so strong and robust when they were alive. Now, in this Arjuna's context, when he's talking about all these people being deprived, tomorrow, I mean, if they were not killed, if the Kauravas were not killed, what were they going to offer their ancestors? What offerings were they going to offer their ancestors? And Kauravas' progeny What are they going to pray to? What kind of a value system have the Kauravas kept for them to adhere to or to pray to or revere? So again, his thing is wrong. Because if you don't have this context, a person who does not go on to read chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, or who hasn't read the Mahabharata before, will say how important it is that the ancestors have to be remembered forever. It's not the ancestors in the physical form that has to be remembered forever. It is values that year after year in that Varsha Shraddha we are paying homage to. Not a particular person, however great or grand he must have been, because he's gone and probably taken rebirth. So don't want to connect to that energy. You want to connect to that principle that is the value system of your own family, which currently is being lost left, right, and center because of the Kauravas' misdeeds. So that was verse 42. Then 43, if you go to see, he's in a loop. He's literally, poor guy is literally in a loop because he starts off in 40, he starts about the destruction of family will lead to annihilation of family ritual rites and, in family. 41, he says impiety will make women corrupt. 42, he says intermixture of caste leads to destroyers of families going to hell. And now in 43, he goes back to the first part. He says that again, if the intermixture of castes happen, they will annihilate the religious rights and castes and families. He goes back to the first thing. So he's in a loop. And that is what happens with us when we start off. Like I said, if the base is wrong, if that base, the foundation is wrong, every argument that we build upon it is going to be wrong. So whenever we think that we are getting into a loop, like a broken record, speaking the same thing and not making any sense, it's a good time to remember these verses of the Bhagavad Gita, identify with Arjuna, get into his shoes and step back a little bit and break that loop. Because this loop has no end. It could, if you're not taken out of it, it could take you to the rock bottom of your own existence from which it is very hard to come out of. So that loop and that quagmire of thoughts is what we have to, I think we've discussed this earlier, that one thought, I'm sure we've discussed that one thought, if we don't nip it there, then consequent thoughts like a domino effect have the power to pull us right down. And that is what has happened in verse number 43. We realize that he's in a loop because he started with one point and he's concluded with some fourth point that is going back to the first point. Now, number 44, again, he calls Krishna Janardana, protector of people. He's trying every way to say that you protect people. Please protect these people that I don't want to kill. He says the same thing as verse number 42, that we are all going to hell. But over here, he tries to make it more dramatic. He's saying, guess what? We're going to hell, but indefinitely. So he adds a very, very word there that indefinitely we are going to be in hell. So what emotion has taken over him over here now? Fear. So along with all that wrong thing, if you tell a lie long enough, to you it appears the truth. So poor Arjuna, he's been telling himself or telling Krishna, whoever he's talking to over here, so many wrong conclusions that by verse 44, fear has stepped in because he started to believe his own arguments. And now he's saying that we are all going to go to hell indefinitely. You can clearly see the emotions of attachment, desire, anger, revenge, fear. All of these emotions are creating such a whirlwind in his mind that he has completely lost the plot of what has to be done over here. Continuously harping on this word Kula Dharma, which is the family's religious rights, which is not able to understand is being destroyed by the minute. As he's speaking, also more and more families and family rights and family values are being destroyed by just the existence of the Kauravas. Just by the Kauravas being alive, already their society has been destroyed, which he has again missed the point completely. And one important thing we have to understand over here, especially if we are one of those who are very superstitious about the rites and rituals of our family. Rites and rituals are just symbolic, like I said earlier, of the values and traditions that we hold dear, that keeps our family together, that glues our family together. If those values and traditions are not being lived by us day in and day out, rites and rituals are absolutely meaningless. It's like you are completely superstitious, devoted, and surrendered to the flag. Let's take Indian flag because I have an Indian passport. I'm completely devoted to the Indian flag, and the flag means everything to me. And the rest of morning, I will hoist the flag. Evening, I will hoist the flag. Rest of the day, I am bad mouthing India. I'm cursing India. Worst of all, I'm doing some illegal transactions in and out of India. What is the point? That love for the flag, and if anybody is destroying the flag, I will go and, do whatever I will do. It doesn't make sense. Or a wedding ring. Okay, I'm wearing a wedding ring today. That wedding ring is just symbolic of my marriage. If I'm wearing my wedding ring and very attached to my wedding ring, and God forbid I lose my wedding ring, does that mean the wedding is over? Or if I'm holding on to my wedding ring and getting into all sorts of nefarious activities outside, extramarital affairs and all of that, what is the point of that wedding ring? So this misunderstood and this disconnected is our understanding of rites and rituals. We've taken on to the rites and rituals, not bothering to find out what are the traditions, what are the values that lie below those. When you start understanding the values and the traditions and why we do, these rites and rituals take a whole different hue and they actually start helping us. But if we are just doing them mechanically and in this particular way, the way Arjuna is keeping on Kula Dharma over that, having forgotten what actually that Kula Dharma is there to uphold and remind us daily of, it is absolutely meaningless. So every verse, as you see, while Arjuna is, whatever he thinks is right, is a mirror to look into our own lives and see where we are repeating these arguments to ourselves and not following the main import of these teachings that will actually help us in our material and spiritual existence.
Thank you. So that completes the major topics we wanted to cover. And let's just go to the closing prayers. Again, the takeaway is just try to understand this shlokas. It should make sense. And please, because while we talk about this caste system, we have to admit that there were some wrong practices. People abused it. Even now, I see people carrying that wrong thinking that they are superior because of their birth. This has to be eliminated because that's not the idea. Nobody is superior by birth. So, on that note, let's listen to the closing prayer.